Welcome back, my friends, to day 69. Can you believe it? Of 365 days of reading through our Bible. So glad you came back. Today we're going to do Genesis 36 to 39. Remember, I love to color verses that I love in Genesis in yellow because Genesis is part of the Torah or the Pentateuch. There's 187 chapters in these first 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis has 50 chapters. And when we last left Genesis, Jacob was returning back to Bethel. We also saw the deaths of Rachel and Isaac. And now we're going to look at Esau's descendants in Genesis 36. This is the account of Esau, that is, Edom. Esau took wives from the women of Canaan: Adah, daughter of Elon the Hittite; Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, the granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite; also Basmath, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebaioth. Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau. Basemath bore Reuel. Oholibamah bore Jeush. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in Canaan. Esau took his wives and sons and daughters and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock and all his other animals, and all the goods he had acquired in Canaan, and moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob. Their possessions were too great for them to remain together, and the land where they were staying could not support them both because of their livestock. So Esau, that is Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. This is the account of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Esau's wife, Adah, and Reuel, the son of Esau's wife, Basemath. The sons of Eliphaz: Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Esau's son, Eliphaz, also had a concubine named Timnah, who bore him Amalek. These were grandsons of Esau's wife, Adah. The sons of Reuel: Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were grandsons of Esau's wife, Basemath. The sons of Esau's wife, Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, and the granddaughter of Zibeon, whom she bore to Esau: Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These were the chiefs among Esau's descendants. The sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau: chiefs Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. These were the chiefs descended from Eliphaz in Edom. They were the grandsons of Adah. The sons of Esau's son Reuel: chiefs Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the chiefs descended from Reuel in Edom. They were the grandsons of Esau's wife, Basemath. The sons of Esau's wife, Oholibamah: chiefs Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These were the chiefs descended from Esau's wife, Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Esau, that is Edom, and these were their chiefs. These were the sons of Seir the Horite, who were living in the region: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These sons of Seir and Edom were Horite chiefs. The sons of Lotan: Horai and Hormam. Timnah was Lotan's sister. The sons of Shobal: Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. The sons of Zibeon: Aya and Anah. This is the Anah who discovered the hot springs in the desert while he was grazing the donkeys of his father Zibeon. The children of Anah: Dishon and Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. The sons of Dishon: Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Kiran. The sons of Ezer: Bilhan, Zaavan, and Achan. The sons of Dishan: Uz and Aaron. These were the Horite chiefs: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These were the Horite chiefs according to their divisions in the land of Seir. Rulers of Edom: these were the kings who reigned in Edom before any Israelite king reigned. Bela, son of Beor, became king of Edom. His city was named Dinhabah. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah, from Basra, succeeded him as king. When Jobab died, Husham, from the land of the Temanites, succeeded him as king. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated Midian in the country of Moab, succeeded him as king. His city was named Avith. When Hadad died, Samra, from Masrekah, succeeded him as king. When Samlah died, Shaul, from Rehoboth on the river, succeeded him as king. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, son of Achbor, succeeded him as king. When Baal-Hanan, son of Achor, died, Habad succeeded him as king. His city was named Pau, and his wife's name was Mehetabel, daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahab. These were the chiefs descended by Esau by name, according to their clans and regions: Timnah, Alva, Jetheth, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinan, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Iram. These were the chiefs of Edom, according to their settlements in the land they occupied. This was Esau, the father of the Edomites. All right, my friends, thanks for hanging in there for all those names of Esau's, his generation, and all his sons and grandsons and everything. Now we get to move on to Joseph's dreams. Joseph's dreams. Genesis 37. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, in the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood straight up, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told his brothers, "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Joseph sold by his brothers. Now, his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to them, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man said. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But when they saw him in the distance and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into a cistern here in the desert, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the richly ornamented robe that he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't here. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornamented robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned his son for many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Wow, what a mess. Several things there. You've got peer pressure, right? It just took one of the brothers to say, hey, let's just completely stop this and not even do this. But, I mean, Reuben tried, right? He said, well, at least let's throw him in the cistern. And then he thought when his brothers go over here, he could rescue, Joseph and get him out again. So at least he was trying. But, I mean, they should have even not done that. But one bad decision leads to another, right? So now they're saying, well, if we kill him, then we're responsible and the blood's on us. So let's not do that. Let's sell him so we're kind of innocent. Plus, we'll get money, right? Oh my goodness. I mean, with all those brothers, again, one or two of them, if they just would have stood up and said, let's stop this nonsense. This is not the right thing. So sometimes that might be you, my friend. I know God has done that with me. There'll be a group of people wanting to do something wrong, and I'm the brave one to stand up and say, hey, I don't think this is right. And you know what happens? Other people say, yeah, I agree with you, but I was afraid to be the only one. So sometimes you have to be the one. So don't be afraid to be the one to stand up and stop the nonsense. To make matters worse, Joseph had a chip on his own shoulder because he had received some notable dreams. In the first, Joseph's sheaf of grain stood up while his brothers' sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to it. In the second dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars, that is, Joseph's father, mother, and 11 brothers, were bowing down to him. Joseph, being an immature 17-year-old, was foolish enough to brag about these dreams to his brothers, who hated him even more because of his dream. The interesting fact about Joseph's dreams, which aren't told at this point in the story, is that they were prophetic. Jacob asked, "Am I and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you?" Actually, yes, Jacob, you will. God had given Joseph these dreams, and he wanted to lead Joseph to a grand destiny, but Joseph would have a lot of unexpected detours in his life before he got to that point. Without the detours, however, Joseph would never have been prepared to walk in his God-given destiny. Keep that in mind the next time God brings an unexpected detour into your life. Oh, wow. I need to hear that. I think you need to hear that. Let's back it up and read that one more time. Without the detours, however, Joseph would not have been prepared to walk in his God-given destiny. Keep that in mind the next time God brings an unexpected detour into your life. Just when God surely seemed absent from the perspective of Joseph and Jacob, we get a hint that he was up to something in the middle of this family disaster. God, as we will soon discover, intended to bring Jacob and his sons to Egypt in order to protect them from a coming famine. Joseph's recent departure placed him in Egypt in the house of Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh. In preparation for that time, God was setting the stage to bring about Joseph's destiny, even when no human was aware of it. That's just so good to remember that. I know we've all been in times when we're thinking, God, what are you doing? Like things seem chaotic or painful or hard or just confusing or not fair. And we think, God, where are you? And here Joseph, he's thrown in a pit and then he's sold. I mean, he's 17, so he's a teenager. Those of us who are parents, think about your 17-year-old. Would you want them hauled off to another country? I mean, really scary stuff. So remember that, my friends, when you're in the middle of a hard time, even if the road seems very long and doesn't make sense, maybe God's preparing you for something bigger and better. It can be hard to see when we can't see the end, right? All we see is the next step. But what does he ask us to do? Take one more step and be faithful. Take one more step and be faithful. That's all he asks. So today, be faithful, and maybe in a year or a decade or whenever, you will look back and be able to say, oh God, I see what you were doing in my life. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. There Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her, and he lay with her, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son, who he named She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, lie with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to produce offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so whenever he lay with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from producing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so he put him to death also. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought, he may die too, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah recovered from his grief, he went to Timnah to the men who were shearing the sheep, and his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went with him. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep," she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that, though Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." "And what will you give me to sleep with you?" she asked. "I will send you a young goat from my flock," he said. "Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it?" she asked. He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" "Your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand," she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. After she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend Adullamite in order to get his pledge back from the woman. But he did not find her. He asked the men who lived there, "Where is the shrine prostitute who was beside the road at Enaim?" "There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here," they said. So he went back to Judah and said, "I didn't find her. Besides, the men who live there said, 'There hasn't been any shrine prostitute there.'" Then Judah said, "Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out and have her be burned to death." As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are." Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah." And he did not sleep with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand, so the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist and said, "This one came out first." But when he drew his hand back, his brother came out, and she said, "So this is how you have broken out." And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was given the name Zerah. Tamar gave birth to twins, and just as with Jacob and Esau, the older of these two, Zerah, would serve the younger, Perez. Thus the line of Judah, which was the covenant line, was preserved and continued even in the midst of sinful circumstances. God's program will not be thwarted. He never accepts or condones sin, but he can still use sin to sovereignly accomplish his kingdom plan. Genesis 39, Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Now, Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered. He lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. This blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in his house and the field. So he left in Joseph's care everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now, Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while, the master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns has been entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you." because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day, he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by the cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him the story. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." When his master heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. I love so many things about this story. One is that Joseph was faithful. He was faithful to God. He just kept working hard. Even when he was put in Potiphar's house, he's like, "You know what? I'm going to work hard." He could have pouted. He could have just been lazy. But no, he's like, "I'm going to do the best I can." And what happened? He got promoted and promoted. Pretty soon, he's in charge of his whole household. He's in charge of everything. And then, even then, he could have slept with his wife. He was in charge of everything. But what did he say? "I'm in charge of everything, and he's given everything to me except one thing. And that's you, my lady. And I'm not going to sleep with you because that would dishonor God." So he had great integrity. And I'm sure she was very persistent day after day trying to, wear him down. But he wasn't going to do it. In the end, his master didn't listen. But I think that Potiphar knew that Joseph was really innocent. I think he knew his wife was trying to scam him. But now he's in jail. But what is he going to do? Is he going to pout? Is he going to be lazy? No, once again, he's going to work and be honest and be organizing things, and he moves up again. And so I just really love that. And it's a good thing for me to remember that even if I'm in a hard time, I still need to be doing the work and being honest and serving God and helping people, and just let God take care of all the details. Joseph's situation seemed even worse than when he'd showed up in Egypt. Back then he was a slave, but at least he had a job. Now he was in prison. Nevertheless, in the midst of a horrid situation, the Lord was with Joseph. God wasn't surprised by anything that happened to him. And before long, Joseph had gained such a good reputation that the warden put all the prisoners under Joseph's authority, making the prisoner the warden. Isn't that crazy? The prisoner becomes the warden, but that's because he was honest and worked hard and he was faithful. This is just the kind of thing God can do when we trust Him in our detours. He may not take us out of jail at our request, but He will come and join us in it. And living with God's presence in the middle of a jail offers a truer freedom than living without God anywhere else ever could. Oh, let's back that up. And living with God's presence in the middle of jail offers a truer freedom than living without God anywhere else ever could. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story about Joseph. I can't wait to get back into it again next week. But come back again tomorrow for more of God's Word, because remember, God's Word in your heart is the best way to live. We'll see you tomorrow. Yes, we will. If you enjoyed this message today, I would appreciate a thumbs up. I would also love it if you would subscribe to my channel and pass it along to other friends who want to strengthen their faith in Jesus. I would love a comment on what you liked and also future topics you would like me to talk about. I would also love to answer any question you may have about how to put your faith in Jesus, the Christmas story, Easter story, anything at all. You can contact me through my website, which is nancyjoy2u. That's nancyjoy, the number 2, the letter U.com. You can also email me at nancyjoy2u@gmail.com. Hope to see you tomorrow.